Hello everyone, and happy Liberty Eve. In case you're unaware, tomorrow is Liberty Day. I'm excited, and I hope you all are too. Personally, I'm excited not only for Liberty Day, but to share this video with everyone. And this will be a long video. In fact, my longest video yet, because today we're ranking every stratagem in Helldivers 2. That's right, all 57 of them. So whether you're a brand new private right out the pods, or an experienced diver looking to try out something new, this is the place for you. We'll be demonstrating and discussing every stratagem. Before we get started, I'd like to clarify a few things first. All footage in this video is from difficulty 6 or higher, so that's the general barometer we'll be using to rank them. And to be transparent, my ship is not fully upgraded, but here's a look at the upgrades I do have. I'll show footage of each stratagem and talk about them briefly. I'll be ranking them in the order they appear in the ship management screen, and I'll be ranking them on a tier list. S tier is a must-try stratagem, the best of the best. A tier is a reliable and solid pick for most missions. B tier is for any stratagem that's situational or otherwise average. C tier is for the ones that are below average, outclassed, underwhelming, however you want to put it. And D tier is for downright bad stratagems, at least in comparison to everything else. Please keep in mind this is only my opinion. If you don't like my opinion, that's fine. And you can make your own stratagem tier list because I made this tier list template on tiermaker.com, and I'll link it in the description. One final disclaimer, I recorded the actual tier list ranking and all the footage associated with it before the October balance patch. I was just way too busy with family to get it all edited until now. So there are a few tidbits of outdated information in here, but I'll make that clear by showing this text on screen when showing an outdated stratagem. There are two stratagems that I want to re-rank, so stay tuned until the end of the video for that. Now I'll stop taking up all your time, and we'll go on to the actual rankings now. Starting off with the Patriotic Administration Center, we have the machine gun. A machine gun designed for stationary use. Trades higher power for increased recoil and reduced accuracy. It's got great damage, a great rate of fire, a great magazine size, good armor pen. It has a stationary reload, but you don't need an ammo backpack for it, thankfully. It's good against most targets in the game. I think we all know that. We've all used a machine gun before. So, it makes sense that I'll go in A tier. It's good and reliable on almost any mission in the game. Next up is the anti-material rifle, a high-caliber sniper rifle effective over long distances against light vehicle armor. This rifle must be aimed down scope. It's a long-range, accurate, and armor-piercing sniper rifle. It's got a nice short reload with no ammo backpack required. It's great against bots. Still good against bugs, but best against bots for sure, because they have so many armored enemies. And I think this also belongs in A tier. It's good on most missions, especially against bots. Next up is the Stalwart, a compact, low-caliber machine gun. Trades power for ease of use, with faster reloading than heavier machine guns. It's just a mobile version of the machine gun. Less stopping power, faster reload. You can move while reloading with this one. It's good for clearing out chaff enemies and mopping up areas. It's great against bugs because they have a lack of armored enemies, compared to bots, that is. So, once again, A tier. It's reliable for when you need it. Next up is the Expendable Anti-Tank. Calls down two EAT-17 expendable anti-tank weapons. The EAT is a one-use rocket capable of damaging heavily armored targets. Well, to start off, it's got a great cooldown, very short. Comes with two rockets. It can take out dropships and fabricators and most armored enemies in one hit. It's great to bring as a backup when you're already bringing another weapon stratagem because you can share it with your allies if you need be. So, I mean, we're already stacking the A tier, but it's A tier. It's reliable, but it's not OP. Next up is the Recoilless Rifle. A recoilless rifle effective against vehicle armor. Includes support backpack required for reloading. Pretty concise description, I'd say. It deals immense damage to any target in the game. It can destroy dropships and fabricators in a single shot. It does have a lengthy stationary reload though. You need an ammo backpack, but you can team reload with it if you have a friend with you. It can one-shot almost anything in the entire game right now, and it's not hard to use. Even with the lengthy stationary reload and the ammo backpack requirement, the recoilless rifle is a downright S tier right now. It is just extraordinarily useful. Next up is the flamethrower. An incendiary weapon for close range. Will ignite targets, terrain, and any flammable teammates. The flamethrower is just great. It's a source of constant damage. 4 canisters loaded with napalm that are going to quickly ward off any enemies that come near you with tons of flame damage. Decent against most enemies, but where it really shines is against bugs, of course. A lot of the time, you're not going to want to bring this into a high difficulty bot match. There's really no reason to bring it over something else in that situation. But if we're talking bugs, I bring this thing all the time. So I love the flamethrower a lot, but I can't really justify putting it in A or S tier when I can only use it in half of the missions in the whole game. So it's B tier. It's situational, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It is still a fantastic and incredibly fun weapon to use. Next up is the autocannon. A fully automatic cannon effective against light vehicle armor. Includes support backpack required for reloading. Well, it's got great damage. It's got great armor pen. It's got a great magazine size. It's got great ammo capacity in the backpack, but it comes with a very long stationary reload. And of course, you need to have the ammo backpack in the first place. You can team reload it, and it's probably one of the best weapons to use with a team reload. Autocannon, you can't go wrong with it. This one's also going into A tier. I might have put it S tier a few months ago when it was probably the best support weapon in the game, but nowadays, it fits in with the rest of them. Next up is the heavy machine gun. A very powerful but difficult to wield machine gun with intense recoil. The HMG is the weighty older sibling to your standard machine gun. Great armor penetration, heavy recoil, a lengthy stationary reload, but it is damn fun to use. The bullets it fires hit like a truck. Of course, it's best against bots for its armor pen capabilities. If you're in a bug mission, you would rather use the Stalwart or even the basic machine gun over this thing, since anti-tank is needed quite sparingly compared to a bot mission. So, HMG also in B tier. Again, I love the HMG, but if we're going to be objective about it, I don't use it in bug missions very often. And next up is the Airburst Rocket Launcher. Fires a rocket that detonates within proximity of a target and deploys a cluster of explosive bomblets. The Airburst Rocket Launcher has massive explosive potential. It's great for medium to large groups of enemies. It's capable of killing airborne groups of enemies like the Shriekers. I'm pretty sure they're called Shriekers. But it does have that classic long stationary reload with an ammo backpack required. This thing is also very dangerous against friends. You do not want to be in close range of its detonation at all. So, A tier. It's good against most things in the game, I'd say. Next up is the Commando. An expendable missile launcher equipped with 4 laser-guided missiles. So, it's a 4-chambered version of the EAT. Fires laser-guided missiles. It takes around 2 shots to kill Fabricator. It can one-shot gunships, though, which is pretty interesting. It has a good cooldown, but really, I find it mostly inferior to the EAT, mostly because of the need to guide the missiles. It's a double-edged sword because you can guide them to where you want them to go after you fire, but you can also really mess that up with your overcorrection in your aiming, or being shot and you flinch and you jerk your reticle around. So Commando, it's B tier. It's still good. B is still good. Next up is the Railgun, an experimental weapon which prioritizes armor penetration. Must be charged between shots, so choose targets carefully. The Railgun has insane damage in unsafe mode. It's great in safe mode even too. It's got great ammo capacity, you got 20 extra rounds with it, a very fast reload, no ammo backpack required, excellent against all armored enemies. It can take down gunships in a single shot too, which is just lovely to see. It only takes a handful of shots to kill something like a Bile Titan, or even a Factory Strider. So yeah, this thing is an obvious S tier. I'm putting it right up top there. I'm not going to order everything in the tier list like this, but the Railgun absolutely goes to the tippy top right now. And the last weapon in the Patriotic Administration Center, the Spear, an anti-tank homing missile, which must lock onto its target before launch. Effective against large and armored enemies. Very true. Anyone can pick up a spear and use it. It's easy to use. It's great for destroying enemy armor and buildings. The targeting can be somewhat deceiving though sometimes. You gotta make sure you have a full line of sight to the target. And it's got that long stationary reload, ammo backpack required. It's pretty damn good though, so I'm also putting it in A tier. You can bring this on any kind of mission, and it will find its use. Next up is the Orbital Cannons section of the ship, starting off with the Orbital Gatling Barrage, a barrage of high explosive rounds fired from the destroyer's high-speed rotary autocannons. So it's got a very short cooldown. It has a perfect duration. It lasts for just how long you want it to kill the enemies in the area. It's great for standard ground forces, and it's just overall a consistent choice for an orbital strike. So, once again, A tier. It is reliable. Next up is the Orbital Airburst Strike, a projectile which explodes while airborne, creating a deadly rain of shrapnel. Not effective against heavy armor. It's got a short cooldown, it's got a good duration, and it flattens any standard enemies in a single burst in a pretty good area. It takes out a small to medium-sized group of enemies pretty efficiently. It might be better against bugs than bots, and like it says, it doesn't do a lot of damage towards any heavily armored enemies. So okay, I'll put it in B tier. It's not quite as good as the Gatling in my opinion. Next up is the Orbital 120mm High Explosive Barrage, a precision artillery salvo over a small area, perfect for taking out concentrated enemy units. It's the little sibling of the 380mm. It deals less damage in a smaller radius. It's better for your more small and concentrated areas like a medium outpost, for example. And the best part is that it's safe for your teammates. People don't use this thing enough. It is good. It can do almost anything that the 380mm can. And it is just a good barrage-style orbital strike. So, you know what? Put it in A tier. It's damn good and it's underrated. And of course, next we have the Orbital 380mm HE Barrage. A prolonged barrage, wreaking extended destruction over a large area. Communication with teammates is advised. It's good against large outposts and objectives, and hordes of enemies. It is not safe for teammates. And I would argue that the duration is too long in a lot of situations. By the time it's killed everything in the area, it still has another 10 or maybe 15 seconds left on its barrage. But I can't deny how fun it is. So, A tier. And moving on up, we have the Orbital Walking Barrage, a linear artillery barrage which moves at intervals, driving the enemy out from cover while allowing an advance. And it does exactly that. It lets you advance on the enemies and push them through and clear a path. It's like a more controlled version of the 380 barrage, but if you can use it correctly, it is very effective against pushing into, say, a bot stronghold. It's also just really, really cool. So, you know what? I'm downgrading the 380. I'm putting this up here. I think this is better. The 380 is damn fun and chaotic, but Walking Barrage I have found more use out of actually lately. So it's A tier. 380 is B tier because it will kill your friends. Next up is the Orbital Laser. The destroyer's laser cannon will sweep over the designated area, vaporizing all targets within the effective radius. This thing will destroy any ground target that it touches. It will leave a path of fire in its wake as well, burning enemies and teammates that try and walk through it. It's like calling in a fire tornado on an enemy, except it does more damage somehow. It's useful against all kinds of enemy outposts. Oh, there's a plane flying over. God damn it, man.
Eagle 1, armed and ready.
But yeah, it's just good against everything. The only problem with it is that you have a limited amount per mission. But you usually won't need more than the 3 you get by default, that is. But yeah, it's basically good against everything in the game. It'll take out large groups of enemies, it'll take out highly armored enemies, and it will decimate enemy-controlled areas. And it looks really, really cool too, so that's an easy S tier for me. Next up is the Orbital Napalm Barrage. Launches a prolonged barrage of napalm shells over a wide area, setting a swath of land ablaze in mere moments. The barrages will last for 30 seconds, and leave behind napalm for an even longer duration than that, effectively denying an area for nearly an entire minute. It is best against bugs though. You usually won't want to use this against bots because, well, fire is best against bugs. And against bots, you have better options like the Walking Barrage, I would argue. If you're looking for that area denial, I wouldn't want to use it on the bot front, but it is really damn good against bugs. So, it's B tier, maybe A tier depending on your preference. Next up is the Orbital Rail Cannon Strike, a high-velocity rail cannon round fired at the largest target in close proximity to the beacon. Targeting is automatic. It is a one-shot solution for most of your problems in Helldivers. It destroys tanks, Bile Titans, laser cannon turrets, any huge heavy armored enemy you can think of. And the delivery of the rail cannon strike is quick. I think the only real problem with it is that the targeting can sometimes mess up and it will target something you didn't want it to target. But those instances aren't that common, for me at least, so I'm still putting it in S tier, because it can one-shot a Battle Titan, and a laser cannon turret, and all that good stuff. Now we're moving on to the Hangar section of the ship, starting with the Eagle Strafing Run. Strafing run of the battlefield to clear small targets, delivered almost instantly. It's a quick way to deal with your small to medium-sized group of enemies, and you get 4 by default. There's not much else to say about it. You do get 4 of them, but overall it's not that useful compared to other stratagems. It's like having a better grenade, pretty much. Alright, I'm putting it in C tier. I hate to do it, because it's still useful, but it is somewhat outclassed. Next up is the Eagle Airstrike. This thing is very effective against most enemies, and buildings too. And you get 2 of them by default. I can't really hate on it, it's just a useful stratagem. A tier. You can use it to take out buildings and armored enemies. Next up is the Eagle Cluster Bomb. A targeted airstrike, unable to destroy buildings, but efficient at clearing smaller targets. This will just blanket an area in low-grade explosives, destroying any chaff enemies very efficiently. 4 by default, and this is just a better version of the Eagle Strafing Run, so it's B tier. It's situationally good. I wouldn't use it on bots that much. You can still use it there if you want, but it's pretty great against bugs. Next up is the Eagle Napalm Airstrike. A barrage of napalm bombs, creating a wall of fire which will stop the enemy in their tracks. It'll explode and set the area on fire, effectively denying the area to all enemies and allies alike. It does very good damage against bugs, of course. You have 2 by default, so it's a solid choice. Again, not my favorite against bots. You can use anything else that would probably be better against bots. But it's B tier since it's great against bugs. It's situational. Next up is a weird one. The Jump Pack. Enables the user to jump higher than gravity and safety would normally allow. Must be charged before use. It's useful for escaping enemies or scaling the walls of a bot outpost, but in reality there's usually a better backpack you can take than the Jump Pack for a high-level mission. It's not going to help you kill anything. It's not going to defend you. It's good if you want to play the game like Solid Snake. But I'm going to break my rule in ranking these things for high difficulties and say that this thing is great for farming super credits on lower levels. I'm going to break that rule and say that for that, it belongs in B tier because it's useful for something in the game. I do want to make it clear that the Jump Pack is very, very fun though. So if all you're concerned about is flying around and jumping around, then hey, go for it. Next up is the Eagle Smoke Strike, a barrage of smoke grenades, creating a thick smoke screen to block enemies' line of sight. So this one creates a wall of smoke and cuts off ranged enemies' line of sight to you. It's great for cutting off the bot's line of sight during an attack on an objective, or defending the extract, or defending an objective. You're not going to find a lot of use out of this on the bug front, and even on the bot front, you could screw over your team with this thing too by cutting off their line of sight. When it comes to eagles, there are better options to bring for an eagle than a smoke strike, so I'm putting it in C tier. It has its uses, but in reality, there are better options if you're bringing an Eagle Airstrike. Next up is the Eagle 110mm rocket pods, a barrage of rocket pods, which the Eagle pilot will release on the largest target near the Stratagem beacon. It's good against buildings and tanky enemies, but I find that the targeting on the Eagle pilot is kind of faulty sometimes. They'll sometimes target something that you can kill with any weapon, and it might just be me, but I found the damage on it pretty consistent. Sometimes it won't kill a Hulk in one hit, or a tank. Maybe I'm just unlucky. You do get 2 by default in one Eagle rearm, but I mean, honestly, this is C tier again. I don't think it's that good, really. There are better options for taking out a tank enemy with a stratagem. Next up is the Eagle 500kg bomb. A large bomb, obliterating almost any target close to impact. Make sure to clear the area. The 500kg is the holy grail of airstrikes in this game. It eliminates nearly everything in a massive radius. You only get 1 by default, but you can get 2 if you upgrade your Eagle. What really needs to be said about the 500kg bomb? Up, right, down, down, down has become a meme. So, there you go. S tier. Now we're moving on to the bridge, starting off with the Orbital Precision Strike, a single precision shot from the destroyer's Atlas cannon. I find this thing quite underwhelming most of the time. It's got a short cooldown, to be fair, but the damage is inconsistent. And it is a precision strike and doesn't have any automatic targeting either. If it had automatic targeting, I'd think this thing was great. But if you're just a couple meters off your target, it's going to do nothing to them. You can use it in a pinch, but there are just better orbital strikes out there to use. So Orbital Precision Strike is... oh man, I almost want to put this in D tier. This thing is not very good. Yeah, it's D tier. I can't think of a reason to use this, really. It is outclassed. There's no reason to use it, in my opinion. Next up is the Orbital Gas Strike, a projectile which releases a cloud of caustic gas, blinding and slowing most enemies. So it covers a large area in gas, and it will make every enemy inside that radius an easy target. And don't underestimate its damage either. It is incredibly good against hordes of bugs, and it will also confuse bots. So actually, I think the Gas Strike is A tier. It's rather good. Next up is the Orbital EMS Strike, a compliance weapon to modify enemy behavior. The projectile temporarily stuns all targets within the strike radius. This thing is like an emergency, holy fuck I'm gonna die button. It stuns a large area of enemies, and allows you and your team to gather your bearings and clear the area once the enemies are incapacitated. I'd rather use an EMS mortar at the end of the day if I want to have a prolonged stun against enemies. Is there another plane flying over? Are you kidding me right now?
Administering freedom.
I can't think of many reasons why I'd use an Orbital EMS Strike over, say, an Orbital Gatling Strike, or an Orbital Napalm Strike, or Airburst Strike, or anything like that. Sadly, it falls in that trap of, why would I inflict a status effect on an enemy instead of just killing them outright? I think the stun should last a long time for an Orbital EMS Strike to be useful. Not D tier. I can't think of why I'd want an EMS Strike as an Orbital Strike instead of something that would kill an enemy instead. Next up is the Orbital Smoke Strike. Creates a large, thick smoke screen to block target's line of sight. This thing, it's better than the Eagle Smoke Strike, I'll say that for sure. I found success when I used it attacking an automaton outpost. It can cut off all the enemy's line of sight in there, and you can run in and do your objectives, take out the fabricators, and be mostly harm-free while you're doing it. It's not bad. But it needs to have its cooldown reduced, because for some reason the smoke screen has a longer cooldown than the gas strike. If they reduce its cooldown, I'd put it in B. But for now, it's still C. It's above the Eagle smoke strike though, for sure. And it is fun. It's fun to smoke off an area and rush in and take out the base and do all that, but in reality, it falls in that trap of, why wouldn't I just blow them up? Next up is the HMG emplacement, a manned fortification offering superior firepower against lightly armored targets. Slow to turn, so place it wisely. They've made it turn a lot faster these days, so that isn't too much of a problem now. The HMG emplacement is just an insanely fun way to take out enemies. It shreds through armor, it can kill anything in the game, but you have no mobility with it, can't move around, you're stuck with it, and it has limited ammo. I think it's worth all the effort you gotta put in to use it, for sure. The damage on it is insane. If you know how to use it, if you know where to place it down, then the HMG emplacement is actually extremely good. And I'm tempted to put it in S tier. Screw it. I'm putting it in S tier. It's too damn fun. It's too damn fun to man that thing and just take down a factory strider with it. Next up we have the Shield Generator Relay, a stationary energy shield, which provides cover against projectiles, has a limited lifetime once deployed. I think I hate this thing, honestly. It's not very effective on higher difficulties in the situations that you'd want it to be useful when being swarmed by enemies. It'll get destroyed when you have bots that are firing rockets at you and walls of laser fire and everything. It's not going to be very useful. And it is definitely not as useful against bugs either. Let's face it, bugs would just rather run through the shield and kill you instead. So it's not useful against bugs. It's not really useful against bots. Why wouldn't you just use a shield generator backpack? If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. If this thing is the best thing ever, let me know. But I think this is the worst stratagem in the game right now, frankly. And I've been playing a lot of Helldivers recently. I just couldn't find a use for this thing. Next up is the Tesla Tower. It does great damage to all enemies and allies. It can stun enemies. It's got good range. It's definitely great against bugs, too. You can lie prone in it, but I think the problem with the Tesla Tower for me is that it's not clear when you're going to die from it. Like, you just instantly, a spark will fly at you from what seems like a ridiculous distance, and you'll instantly die. I think that its friendly fire damage should be turned down a little bit. It should not instant kill you. I think that's a bit too harsh. It should kill you in 2 sparks, and give you a chance to get on the ground. I know that's like unrealistic or whatever, but it's a bit much. But in general, it does pretty great damage to just about everything in the game. Obviously great against bugs, good on defense missions, good for defending against enemies. It's a B tier. It's B tier. Situational, you won't always want to bring it. Now we're moving on to the engineering bay. Starting off with the anti-personnel minefield. deploys a defensive anti-personnel minefield to halt enemy advance. Yeah, it does do that. It covers a generous area in mines, taking out most enemies and effectively halting an enemy advance for a period. Like most minefields, it's best against bugs because they're the ones that charge at you, of course, but you can find use cases for this against bots too. Yeah, it's B tier. It's pretty good, but you just need to know how to use it, that's all. Next up is the supply pack. Supply boxes containing ammunition, with a backpack that allows the user to distribute boxes to fellow Helldivers. I mean, what needs to be said? It keeps you and your squad supplied with ammo, grenades, stims. You become a walking resupply beacon. This thing's solid from the moment you pick it up all the way up to Helldive difficulty. It's never going to go out of style. This is what every stratagem wants to be in the game. So I'm putting it S tier. Up with the big hitters. There's literally no downside to using it, apart from the fact that you can't use a shield generator backpack instead. Next up is the grenade launcher. A grenade launcher effective against armored infantry. Not intended for use against vehicle armor or fortified buildings. It's excellent at killing groups of most kinds of chaff enemies and medium armored enemies. It's great at closing bug holes and killing the bugs themselves while you're at it. But it's ineffective against armor and buildings unless you're shooting right in that little fabricator hole. It's pretty damn good. It's generally useful, but you just can't use it against armored enemies. But you can use it against both factions pretty solidly. I'd say it's an A tier. Underrated, pretty good. Next up is the laser cannon. A laser weapon firing a continuous beam. Does not require ammunition, but will need heat sink replaced if it overheats. It's a seemingly underwhelming weapon. It's somewhat effective against bugs, not very effective against bots. I don't see a reason to pick it over other weapons right now. It does set enemies on fire much faster now, which is a plus, and there's no recoil anymore. But in general, there are just better options. I'm not a big fan of this one, so I'm putting it in C tier. It's not trash. I'm just not a big fan, really. I think it's not that good. But I know that there are some pretty die-hard laser cannon fans. Next up is the Incendiary Mines. Deploys a defensive incendiary minefield, which will set both terrain and targets alight when triggered. This is the ultimate area denial tool against bugs, pretty much. Every mine's going to spread fire around. It's going to give you excellent damage over time. And as a fire weapon, and also being minefields, it's not very effective against bots. So, I'm slapping it, right up with the other mines. It's B tier. It's good. Good in the right hands, that is. Next up is the Guard Dog Rover, an autonomous drone equipped with a laser rifle, providing 360-degree cover. Returns to backpack to cool down. It's a constant stream of laser damage towards enemies. It rarely needs to cool down, and it kills lower chaff bug enemies very quickly. You just gotta watch it for friendly fire. This thing is just so damn good against bugs. I like to run the flamethrower and the Guard Dog Rover and just go to town setting everything on fire. It's damn fun. And it's even useful against bots too. I think it's a really, really good backpack choice. So that's also A tier. Next up is the Ballistic Shield Backpack. A backpack which can be wielded as a one-handed ballistic shield, protecting against small arms fire. This thing protects against more than just small arms fire, I'll tell you that right now. You can get hit by a rocket in the face and this thing will help you shrug it off. It offers excellent protection against bots. But to wield it properly, you are limited to one-handed weapons, but I think that's a pretty fair trade-off. Running this with a Senator, it's like you're playing Rainbow Six Siege. It is really, really fun, though. It's really fun. Pick up, what is it, like the Pummeler? Run that with a Ballistic Shield, and you just are in just a slugging match with the bots. It's a lot of fun. Of course, though, it's not really that effective against bugs. Why would you take a Ballistic Shield when you can take a two-handed weapon or a flamethrower against a bug? So, it's B tier, but make no mistake, it is really fun to use against bots, and I recommend you try it out. If you haven't already, that is. Next up is the Arc Thrower. Projects an arc of lightning at close range. Charges up to project bolts, and may discharge through multiple targets. Well, it's got unlimited ammo, no reloading, no overheating, and it's great at taking out nice little clusters of enemies in a pretty efficient way. It can also stun enemies now, as of the September patch. So, that's an easy A tier for me. Next up, we have the Anti-Tank Mines. Scatters powerful anti-tank mines that deal heavy, armor-penetrating damage. Minefield is less densely packed relative to smaller mines. These are really, really high damage mines that are very effective against armor, and good against all enemies, and of course, great against bugs. But of course, these ones are going to be a bit better against your bots, because they're so great against armor. And there's really not much else to say about these things. So, they're, in my book, they're a cut above the other mines, so that's another A-tier stratagem for me. Next up, we have the Quasar Cannon. Charges up to fire a powerful, explosive energy burst. Has a long cooldown period after firing. Well, the Quasar Cannon is to the recoilless rifle what the Sickle is to the Liberator. It's a lower damage, heat-based, and consistent damage output alternative. You don't need to reload it when it can cool down on your back, so you can keep on the move and reposition yourself and get another shot in on whatever it is you're trying to take down. One-shots fabricators and takes out dropships if you hit them in the engine as well. You do need to have better aim with it though, and it does have to charge up to fire. So it is slightly worse than the recoilless rifle, so I'm putting it in A tier. I still prefer the recoilless rifle, but the Quasar Cannon has a lot of advantages to it as well. Next up is the Shield Generator Backpack. It encloses the wearer in a spherical shield which blocks high-speed projectiles. Has a limited lifetime once deployed. Let's be honest, it's gonna save your life. It's got reliable protection, it's great against bots on all difficulties, it's even good against bugs sometimes too. If you don't know what kind of backpack to take, this or the supply pack are the two ones that you're gonna look for right away. So obviously, this thing's S tier, right up there with the supply pack. It is damn good, and it's just gonna save your life. That's all you need to know about it. Now we're moving on to the Robotics Workshop. First up, the Machine Gun Sentry. An agile, automated machine gun turret will fire at targets even if Helldivers will be caught in the crossfire. Like most turrets, I'd say that is accurate. This thing is really underrated, I think. It's got a really short cooldown, it's like a minute and a half, I think. Pretty decent armor pen, and it can take down gunships. It also turns really fast, but it does have a small ammo capacity. This thing's underrated. You can just toss it out every couple minutes, and it'll take out some enemies for you. It can take down gunships. I don't really know what else I need to say about it. Yeah, I'm putting it in A tier. It's actually really, really good. And next up we have the Gatling Sentry, an automated turret with extremely high rate of fire. Caution. Does not check if friendly units are in line of fire. No sentry does. Well, this thing's got a great ammo capacity, a great rate of fire, a good turning rate, and it's got a pretty short cooldown, and it's good for all of your chaff enemies. It's just a good like support sentry gun. You can't really go wrong with it, I'll tell you that much. So, I'm also putting it in A tier. Doesn't really have good armor pen, but hey, it still gets the job done for what it wants to do. Next up we have the Mortar Sentry, a turret firing powerful shells in a high arc, effective at long ranges, and able to strike targets behind cover. Well, I just want to get this out of the way. This thing is awful against bugs because it will always kill your teammates. The bugs are going to get in your teammate's face, and the Mortar Sentry is going to kill them before the bugs even do. If you take this against bugs, please stop it, get some help. But on the flip side, it's great at assaulting bot outposts and objectives, and it's great at defending against bots too, as long as you can of course kill the berserker that's charging up to you. So it's really good against bots, I find, but it suffers against bugs. I would never curse my teammates on a bug mission with this thing. So it's going B tier, because it's half and half. It's only good half the time. It's the definition of situational. Next up we have the Guard Dog, an autonomous drone equipped with a Liberator assault rifle, providing 360-degree cover. Returns to backpack to rearm. It's reliable extra firepower, but it's not a lot of extra firepower. I find it to be somewhat underwhelming at times. It has a small magazine, but a fast reload time when it's in your backpack, and it is less dangerous to friendlies than the Rover. It won't set your friendlies on fire like the Rover Guard Dog will, but in general I just find it less useful. So it's B tier. Maybe even C tier. Yeah, C tier. I would still use the Guard Dog Rover over it any day. Next up is the Autocannon Sentry, an automated cannon turret firing anti-tank munition over long ranges. Sacrifices agility for range and power. The Autocannon Sentry is very, very deadly, but very, very slow. It can pin down and destroy large groups of enemies. It shoots down drop ships, gunships, all that good stuff. It's good at long range. But again, the major drawback is the slow turning rate. But once it's in the right spot, it is super, super powerful. So I think that's a standard A tier in my book. If it turned as fast as the Machine Gun Sentry, this thing would be insanely overpowered. Next up we have the Rocket Sentry, a powerful automated turret, effective against armored targets. The turret will primarily aim at larger enemies, so it's great against most enemies, I'd say. Deals area of effect damage, so it can take out big groups, and it is effective against armor too. It is a damn good sentry, but you gotta be careful, because it does do the AoE damage, and it will ragdoll you if you get hit by it or anything like that. So, another A tier sentry. In general, the sentries in this game are really damn good. Next up is the EMS Mortar Sentry, a turret firing static field generators that slow the advance of enemies. Yeah, that's what it does. It's great for slowing down enemies while you do objectives in terminals or defend the extract or whatever. It's also good for pushing into enemy territory. It's got long range, and of course you don't need a direct line of sight. And guess what? This mortar sentry doesn't kill your teammates in a bug mission. But by that same metric, it doesn't kill your enemies either. So it is a situational weapon, I would say. It's good against both factions, but it's not going to kill them, that's for sure. So it's a B tier. Next up is the Patriot Exosuit, a heavily armored walking exosuit equipped with a rocket launcher and a heavy machine gun. It's not really a heavy machine gun. If they want to be accurate, I'd say it's more like a stalwart. It's decent at killing chaff enemies, and the rocket launcher can do some damage towards some more armored enemies, but doesn't have enough ammo to be effective for a long or even a good period of time. In my opinion, it is inferior to the Emancipator. It's still good, it's still fun, but why take this when you have the Emancipator? The Patriot Exosuit is a C tier. It's good, it works, but it's outclassed. And of course, next up we have the Emancipator Exosuit, a heavily armored walking exosuit equipped with dual autocannons. Who doesn't love this thing? 200 rounds of anti-tank autocannon shells. It's got a great fire rate, great damage, and a good-ass ammo pool too, since it's gotten buffed in the September update. And this is, in my opinion, probably the most fun stratagem in the game, next to like the HMG emplacement. So, S tier. S tier. Emancipator Exosuit is too damn fun. And moving on to our last category, the newest category, Chemical Agents. With the first one being the Sterilizer. Atomizes caustic chemicals into a fine mist that liquefies sensitive electronics and tissues. Blinds and slows most enemies. Yeah, that's all true. And you can use it to confuse and slip past a horde of enemies or set them up for easy kills. It's a decent support weapon against bugs, but it's inferior to the flamethrower right now. There's no real reason to use this over the flamethrower, because the flamethrower kills the enemies way faster and it has better range. And for some reason the sterilizer has like recoil on it. Why does it have a recoil on it? That's just dumb. In context, because we're going to talk about the next stratagem here, I think that the sterilizer is kind of a D tier. There's no reason to use this thing over a flamethrower. It's fun. It's fun to go around gassing enemies, and that sounds really fucked up. And our final stratagem in the game, the Guard Dog Dog Breath. Fantastic name. A drone that defends its user by firing caustic gas at nearby enemies, blinding and slowing them temporarily. Returns to backpack to refill. This is just better than the sterilizer because you don't need to hold it. You don't need to fire the gas manually at people. It just does it by itself. So it's a good safety net against fighting bugs, really. You can run around in their nests and the dog breath will confuse the enemies for you, and you can slip by and do your objectives or take the enemies out, make them fight each other, that kind of thing. It's great actually at that. Guard dog, dog breath, B tier. You're not going to find a lot of use out of it against bots because the range is so short, but against bugs, it's damn good. It's damn good. Now, for what you've all been waiting for, revisions. I'm not re-ranking every single stratagem that was changed in the October patch, only the few that I marked with the outdated text in the top right corner of the screen during the video. These are the only ones that I consider to be changed enough to be re-ranked. First is the autocannon. The autocannon was already a versatile support weapon, but with the addition of programmable ammo, it can fill any role now. You have flak for taking out groups of chaff enemies, and you have APHET for armored enemies. So it's definitely S tier now. It can do anything. The shield generator relay. This went from the worst stratagem in the game, in my opinion, to a uniquely solid pick for bot missions. Right now, nothing can do what the shield generator relay can do, and I'm bumping it to B tier for actually being very useful on the bot front now. Then we have the guard dog. So they buffed the Liberator Penetrator in the October patch, improving its magazine capacity from 30 to 45, and at the same time, They changed the Guard Dog's weapon from a standard Liberator to the Liberator Penetrator, giving it more armor penetration and more ammo. They also gave all the Guard Dog variants the ability to be recalled to the backpack. People didn't like that the drones would shoot at patrols they were trying to sneak past, and that's no longer an issue if you can control when you want your drone to return to the backpack. So the Guard Dog is going to A tier. Now it can compete with the other Guard Dog variants, and it has its role as being the armor pen version of those drone backpacks. There's my final ranking. You can take it or leave it, and for the love of democracy, do not do a bounce patch on Liberty Day. Hold on, newsflash, bucko. I just woke up right before this video is going to go out, and I see that it's been confirmed that for Liberty Day we're getting the classic Helldivers 1 armor and the Constitution rifle. So we're finally getting a primary bolt action, plus the thing has a bayonet on it, and a cool set of armor. I just hope that you found this video entertaining and informative. Don't forget you can make your own tier list using the link in the description, and if you've watched this far in the video, please leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this one. I also want to give a shout out to this guy, Colin Bowser. He was the first person to comment about the little Easter egg I put in my last video. If you want to see that, then it'll be on screen right now. That's all I have for today. SCS Prophet of Dawn, signing off.